Good evening.
In case you don't know, my name is Kathy Keno, and first of all, I want to say how humbled I am to be here with you. You're such an incredible group of talented, powerful, strong, and driven, smart women. Women that are empowered to build. I also want to say that Jill asked me to speak at the inaugural graduation ceremony, and my first thought was, why? Especially because Jill knows speaking in public is probably my biggest fear, and something I know I'm not very good at. You can hear my voice trembling, my hands shaking, so it's just a... And the second thing I know I'm not good at is talking about myself. So wondering why she reached out, I started to worry. Maybe she liked me. No, but really, it's ironic that this terrible fear I have of speaking in public does not transcend to my work and my passion for real estate. I read this week what somebody wrote on LinkedIn. True growth often requires us to step outside our comfort zones, confront our fears, and embrace the unfamiliar. This act of stepping beyond our limits creates an extraordinary sense of liberation, a freedom that transcends the boundaries we once believed were immovable. When I read this, I think starting with nothing may have molded my perception of losing. I never felt I had anything to lose, and that belief allowed me to take risks that nobody, or maybe others, would not have felt were wise. When others talk about fears in real estate, I almost feel uncomfortable. I was never afraid of making a decision when it came to buying a piece of real estate. Jill will tell you, I held on to them way too long. I got emotionally connected to all of my real estate developments, and she tried to talk me into doing some things, and I didn't listen, and I look back and think I should have, but putting together a development that may not go well, I think because I knew I was in control of most of those decisions, and if they did not work out right the first time, I didn't give up. And maybe going back to my previous comment, the fact that in my mind I never had anything to lose made my decisions easier. I had nothing to begin with, and every success was incredible to me. And to me, the best thing about success was being able to share it with everyone I loved. I loved everything about real estate development. My first 30 years were filled with meeting so many great people, between lenders and lawyers, people at cities and counties, and then I got into tax credit development, and I got to meet national syndicators, consultants, and state and federal employees. During those 3 decades, we developed over 2,000 units of housing, the majority with the low-income housing tax credit, and invested over $250 million into the neighborhoods of Detroit. The intrinsic reward of developing affordable housing was beyond anything I could have imagined. But Jill asked me to talk a little bit about how I got started in the business. So, almost everyone thinks that it must have been something that was generational, which I'm sure you know many real estate developers have been taught through growing up in the family business. The Shostacks, the Friedmans, the Silvermans, the Fartmans. I was not that fortunate, and I'm sure most of you in that room were not that fortunate either. My father was permanently disabled when I was 12 years old. I was the youngest of 5 children, and my father managed a car dealership, and my mother was a homemaker. When he became disabled, I went from a very middle-class income family to him receiving $379 a month on disability. Since at that time I was the only one of my siblings who was under 18, he also received an additional $189 toward my care. Can you imagine living on that? There's no question in my mind that his disability changed my life forever. Basically, I became an entrepreneur at 12 years old. With the help of my mom, we came up with one idea after another for me to help make money. I wove pot holders, made candles out of melted crayons, and sold them door to door. With my dad, I dug up night crawlers at night and took them to Belleville Lake to sell to fishermen. We collected newspapers and filled his car to the brim to go get weighed and sell the paper by the pound. But then a family moved in across the street from me with 2 sons. He was a very successful salesman. He owned several rental properties and a Porter car wash, and his wife worked for Congressman Bill Ford. I met them while selling candles, and I asked if he ever needed a babysitter. I was available. I began working for them all summer long, 40 hours a week for $50, and continued to do my side gigs, selling things door to door. I used to look at the canvas bags he brought home filled with quarters. Almost everything I made, I gave to my parents to help them pay their bills. And as soon as I turned 16, I bought my first car so that I could continue to work for the McGee's, even after they moved from Wayne to Birmingham. But seeing how successful Ken and Connie were made me think at a very young age that I had to buy real estate. Then somewhere between 16 and 17, I bought a book called Nothing Down. I actually brought it here today, in case anyone wants to borrow it. This was it. There was a Century 21 office at the end of my street in downtown Wayne, and I literally would go there once a week and sit and go through, at the time they were called UNRA books. You know, they were books of every piece of real estate that was for sale in each county. You guys are probably too young to remember, but they were the size of giant telephone books. I would look for what Nothing Down taught me to look for. Don't wanders. A house that looked distressed, a lawn that had been let go, a bad roof, a house in need of paint, etc. Those were the houses they told me to look to buy, and they were usually willing to take some form of creative financing. At 19, I bought my first duplex in a very distressed area of Wayne, West Lane called Mill Lane. This area was built during World War II for those that worked at the bomber plant in Ypsilanti. Ironically, this is where my parents had first moved in 1942 when they moved down from Petoskey, so my dad could work at the bomber plant. In 1979, when I purchased my first duplex in Norway, it was nicknamed Shacktown or Cardboard City. This brings a whole other part of my journey. It was through my first real estate investments that I realized how much I connected with the children of my tenants. I saw things that made me very sad. The reality of kids having no choice in the circumstances they were born into quickly engulfed me. I realized that one's environment and surroundings often label them, and being labeled poor can bring with it a multitude of perceptions, on top of what they were sometimes living through daily. I could go on and on here, and I'm happy to answer any questions, but ultimately these concerns over how children could often be impacted by poverty led me to a very important part of the next 15 years of my life. When I was 25, I opened a daycare center in Westland. I had absolutely no idea what I was doing. I went downtown Detroit and met with the Department of Licensing and Regulation for the state of Michigan and found out that I had enough credits in early childhood and adolescent psychology that I could qualify as a director. So I went for it. I really felt that surrounding children with the love, the positive reinforcement, and the encouragement that I had received from my parents could make such a positive impact on their childhoods. I continued to work out of my office above the daycare for almost 15 years. In 1995, someone asked me if I could help with a mission development that they were proposing on a vacant school site, ironically in Norway. Wow, talk about full circle. I put together a tax credit application and was so fortunate to have received an award of a very competitive low-income housing tax credit. My first time submitting. In the next 20 years, I received over 20 low-income housing tax credit awards. Every affordable development I did focused on not looking like traditional affordable housing housing. I wanted the families, and especially the children, to live in conditions comparable to a market rate development. Granite counters, stainless steel appliances, ceramic floors, things to me that were important for the residents and especially the children, to not have the perception of being poor when they brought their friends home. Feeling proud of their surroundings was something I felt gave residents the emotional lift they sometimes needed and well deserved. Jill asked me to talk about how I began again. I never liked talking about me, but when I started writing about my journey, there's so much that I haven't been able to touch on. But that being said, this day is not about me, it's about you. It's about you and the journey you are about to begin, or you may have already started. My mom was so proud of me. On your real estate development journey. If there's anything I could say to impact that journey, I think it would be to never give up. Dream big, always be kind, and remember, even though the children have no choice in where they are born, we have a choice in how to make their lives and how to make a positive impact on their lives and their surroundings and their home and their lives through our planning and our purpose. I am so proud of each of you for taking this year out of your life to define your goals and your purpose. And if you ever need someone to talk to about your plans, your choices, your obstacles you may run into, which there's going to be many, I can promise you that. I would love to listen and offer any suggestions. Sometimes it's good to bounce things off someone that probably has already been through them. And I can promise you, and Jill knows, I think I've been through them all. But really, I just want to thank you. And again, if you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer them.